one.
Good evening and welcome to the Town of Templeton's Board of Health meeting. It's Monday, May 8th, and it is 7 p.m. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we'll start with number one, review minutes of March 27. We all have reviewed them.
They looked good to me.
Want to make a motion?
I will make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second it.
Okay, great, thank you. And the other woman isn't here yet, so switch the agenda.
If you don't mind reordering the agenda so that Mr. Lavin can come on
We're
up.
going to move ahead to number 3 so that Mr. Lavin from the USDA Rural Development can speak. Thank you. Welcome.
Welcome. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for the time, your time here and the opportunity to speak with you. As you noticed, my name is Jim Lavin from USDA Rural Development. I work in the single family housing program. USDA, probably most people have heard of, but not so much rural development where I work. USDA, you see us in the grocery stores and the menus, and you know about all the things that the department does. And rural development is a small component inside USDA, which is different because most government agencies do what they do everywhere. Social Security goes everywhere. They do Social Security. We in rural development basically do everything. We do infrastructure, public works, and business loans and housing, but we only do these things in rural areas, of which Templeton is one. And in fact, one of our really in our strike zone in Massachusetts for the communities that we try to outreach and assist. What brings me here is the single family housing program, which provides financing for low income families to either to buy or to repair their homes. And I'm here tonight with thanks to Lori, and as a result of some conversations we've been having. So I'm here really on 2 levels. The first, just as mentioned, to let the more people know that we're here, because we're so kind of under the radar. Every chance we get to let people know we're here and what we do, we try to do that. So of all of the things that if you can keep rural development, our agency in mind for things that the town is looking to finance or just in general do, but specifically when it comes now to housing, and again, following off of the conversations with Lori, problem properties and things in some of the houses in town that may be abandoned or neglected or blighted even, and some of those which may be USDA loans that people couldn't keep up. So what we're trying to do is make that part of our kind of repertoire of things that we can do and help on. In addition to the front end, where people can come in, and so everybody in town is open for the regular entry to the program to buy their home or repair it. We do that. The single family housing program helps low income families buy a house. So we're in the affordable housing universe, which is mostly rental properties, which makes sense rationally. The biggest ability you can help is in apartments. But whereas there's a rental subsidy to help people afford an apartment, we have an interest subsidy to help people afford a house. So that goal of owning a home is just as viable and reachable for people with low incomes as an apartment to do. And we try to do that. What the point of coming here tonight to be for the second level that I mentioned about what we do when people apply for the program to buy their house, and we work through all of them, of the people who have the ability to buy the house, they've passed and eligible, and they've met all the criteria that you would make for getting a mortgage. We give them essentially a pre-approval. They get a certificate to go, and then they go out and find their house, hopefully. But that's hard, as you would imagine. And if I told you, how many, for every 10 people that make it through and get a pre-approval and go out into the market, you probably would come close to guessing what the success rate is. was about 20%.
I was gonna say two.
Say one.
Yeah, so 20% of the people, so that's hard. So that means 8 out of 10 families could have had a house, but could not. So that got us to thinking, what if we could find houses already so that when people came out with their pre-approval, hey, here's a house in Templeton. And that would be good for the government too, because then we'd have a problem house that's not being paid. So a new person could come in. We maybe could bump ourselves up to 30% or something to do that. It's not going to be a cure-all or a big lift, but it would be great. So that's something that we're trying to do with Lori's help, because there is one in Templeton on Albert Drive, which has come normally. And this is the other thing too, as I mentioned to Lori, USDA is huge. I've heard if it was a bank, it would be like the 3rd biggest in the universe. It's just enormous.
Mhm.
So by the time word gets to me at the bottom of the chain,
Mhm.
the auction was 6 months ago. So we're trying, in this case now, because the Attorney General, who also is working on this kind of problem, has established a program. There's a chance now that we can get out, but USDA ahead of it. So that's what we're trying to do, is to be able to find these houses like Albert Drive, and to be able to bring them into the possibility of a goal for the people that have their eligibility ticket to go. What we're finding now, though, as this continues to go, is there's really maybe not that many coming organically through the program. So that gets us to thinking, another thing why we're here now is to ask you for help on this. What if the town of Templeton, teachers, first responders, veterans with substandard housing, town employees, DPW, people who maybe don't realize that they could buy a house, and it's for low-income families. So for example, in Worcester, the income, you can't make more than 78,000 to qualify, which is not, it's for, that's for 1 to 4 families. So I'm assuming that maybe a teacher or maybe an entry-level first responder or somebody could be, maybe if they knew that, they wouldn't have to get one of the problem properties. They could be eligible and they could help it. But so we'd like to try to leverage all of this and come out and get as many people to know. And if there's ways that we can, I know you have a veterans agent, things like that to try to work through. So I guess the takeaway, and not to take up a lot of your time, but to just, to thank Lori and to thank the town and for working with us on this. Please keep us in mind if there's ways that we can reach out. And if you have other ideas or contacts of people that we can possibly get more people in this market here that can get maybe a jump and maybe to get a lead on something that could help them get into a house. It was somebody that worked for us. She's left for a better position. She's gone someplace to another agency, but she grew up with a single parent. She said, when she got to work at USDA and told her mother what she did for work, her mother was, he couldn't believe it. She said, if I had known that when you were growing up, I would have tried to get us a house. But so that's the getting this word out there that this program exists is our challenge. And that's what we're trying to do in any way we can. Problem properties, people that would apply, however.
Let me ask a question.
Yes.
About the problem properties now, I would think that developers and builders would be more suited to buy those properties with their resources and their labor force and fix them up and flip them and sell them as a USDA, because by the time you were to buy, or I'm using you collective as the USDA, to buy a property at X amount of dollars, put the money into it, wouldn't that put that probably out of the low income price range with the value of a house around here? Especially, I'm very familiar with the house on Albert Drive. I mean, that house is probably fixed up in the mid twos, which is a high mortgage for somebody on $78,000. I mean, that's high end of 78. So if they're 50,000, I mean, that's a lot of money for somebody to on the low income. I mean, how does that explain how that would work, how that works?
That's a great question, and it gets right to the heart of why we really want to run this. This is a pilot program that we really would like to scale up on it. But to your first question, because of the interest rate subsidy, I have seen applicants in that low, upwards of $400,000 houses. You can, when you get that interest rate subsidized and people are not having to pay the full market value, market rate on it, their income that they have, which they do have to have. They've got the capacity to pay up to there. In fact, I can tell you, there's loan limits, in fact, that we have, but the loan limits are pretty substantial. In Worcester County, for example, in Templeton, somebody in our low income program could get a house up to 377.6. And to the second part of your question, if it's a house that we own, that the person left, now we've got some latitude. Now we can say, and I'm only exaggerating to make the point.
Right.
We'll sell it to them for $1, wrap the repair costs into the mortgage, and they go off with a regular, with the house at the amount they can afford, built out to fix with all the code violations, anything. We can't put in a pool or anything, but we can do things that would
They
get.
can't have a pool.
Right,
Well,
right.
I mean-
And they changed that. Now they changed that. Now they said, now you can have, you can have.
I was just curious as a homeowner. I mean, I understand that taxes go up, your mortgage goes up, and you're talking about a 376. The property tax one that's going to be fairly substantial, even if your mortgage is low. And then the bigger the house, the more it costs to maintain, heat, lights on, and you still got to eat. So
Yeah.
you got some. That's
So
to me, those numbers don't make sense.
the houses that we're actually looking at correspond with our abandoned housing project. And there's 3 of them that are, the one on Elbert is not a huge
Right.
house, as you know. And neither are the other 2. The other 2, one is on Shore Drive, 2-bedroom ranch style kind of house in need of help, and same thing on Turner Road in Otter River. And it's such a long process. We're hoping to jumpstart them getting turned over without putting the USDA through the abandoned housing receivership rigmarole. We're hoping to keep that a separate project, and the Attorney General, they're fine with it. So in fact, they know that I'm dealing with you. So-
Yes, that's the huge help of that, because if we can get out ahead and get a lead, but Mr. Baxter, to your question, I mean, it's a kind of a rigorous, not worse than a bank, but people with the employment and the capacity, we build in that, inflation of taxes, and they have an escrow account that goes with it. So, and we check that every year. Every year their income is verified, so they continue to get the interest rate subsidy, which will correspond. So getting them in and finding the house is by far the hardest part.
I was just thinking that $400,000. I mean, I know I couldn't afford a $400,000 house.
And that's in Middlesex County or something. I've seen it, like I said, a couple of times, because I said, wow, but if you've got, and it's up to 4 people, so you can have siblings and parent, you can have 4 people supporting it. Sometimes that's probably where you get the 400s.
Yeah.
But regularly, but there's generally a correspondence between because you can't have a big immodest house, so we control that, and then the income that the people can sustain with their subsidy finds hope. That's the hard part, though.
Out of curiosity, does it go when you're looking at properties and matching them with families and income and all that good stuff? I guess basically for all of us. So you have a 3-bedroom, you're not going to sell it to somebody with 6 kids. That doesn't make sense.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And to some, there is
Or a couple with 1 child is not going to get a 4-bedroom.
Right.
Even if they can't afford, I mean, that just doesn't make sense.
Right.
Okay, so you do, that's.
Yes, there's there's in our regulations is so that the number of children can't exceed X. I mean, if you have siblings that, they can spread out.
Yeah, okay. No, I was just curious, just so when our houses come up.
And just curious, if their income changes and increases by 5 times, does the subsidy go down?
Yes, it does.
Makes sense.
So I'd like to keep working on this and put some links on the website
Suggest that.
for USDA for the program. Maybe keep a few things in the office if people come in and ask questions, things that we can hand out.
Yes.
Now, God forbid, what happens if somebody gets one of these nice loans subsidized and everything, and they get a nice house, then they default?
it sits.
And what happens?
Well, then I guess the Albert Drive scenario, kind of that, but yes, and it does happen, but it's kind of frustrating because we are so huge. USDA is so huge. They've centralized all of that function in St. Louis. And if that's why we're trying to get out in front of it at the field level, because to prevent that situation from getting out of hand, if we could find out easily, if you can get them before the people leave and find out a way to get, deed in lieu or to get some kind of a friendly transfer that we can, hey, here's somebody that just got approved. That would be a dream.
Right. Now I'm just saying because it doesn't take long for a house to go to pot.
Right.
But they continue to pay the taxes.
That's and as a taxpayer, I think, we would be,
The
because
USDA continues, oh.
we're
that's
cutting the
great.
grass, we're cleaning it up, we're securing the place, paying the
Spending a lot of
taxes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was my curiosity question. I mean. Just, it was strictly curiosity. Has nothing to do with anything really. Me being nosy.
It was, so again, thank you. I won't take your time, but I appreciate your,
Yeah.
and again, an ongoing thank you to Laurie for continuing to work with us. And we're still always like trying to, I'd like to talk to the veterans agent and somebody from the school department, somebody will figure out ways to get the people in front of the kitchen situation so you don't get more problems.
Get you that information.
Do we need to make a motion, Laurie? Or, okay, you're all set. But thanks on the
Thanks,
website.
Susan.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you so
Nice to
much.
see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we'll move back to the Coalition for Safe Drinking Water. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you guys. How are you today?
Good, how are you?
Fantastic. Thank you for asking. I do have a PowerPoint presentation put together. If you don't mind, I'm going to start sharing my screen. Hopefully, everyone will start to see it. Let's see.
Logan, are we good to go on that?
I believe so, Hannah.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you.
Sure. what that's- Just a second, having a slight technical difficulty. There we go.
That's my world every day.
Yes. Okay, we see you. Start. from
You see the
beginning.
presentation. Okay, fantastic. I'm just going to. Yeah, I'll just do it like this. Awesome. So everyone, my name is Madison Wellman. I'm from the Coalition for Safe Drinking Water. The coalition is a joint operation by RCAP Solutions, which is my employer, a small nonprofit based in Worcester, Massachusetts. We would do a lot of work in housing and in water infrastructure in rural communities. And we're also partnering with the Health Foundation of Central Massachusetts, who is the primary funder of this initiative. Our program began as the private well program to protect public health. You can see two of my fantastic colleagues there, Jim and Perna, out on a well inspection that we did over the last 2 or 3 years. The program is funded by the Health Foundation of Central Massachusetts, as I said. Our project began in 2020. Since 2020, we've done 502 private well tests at private residential wells across the state of Massachusetts. We did these not by taking a sample directly from the well, but we do what's called a source test. So we test in the kitchen sink from the faucet, not by, say, dipping a ladle into the well itself. Our goal of this project was to compare the quality of drinking water that people on private residential wells are on as to people who are on municipal drinking water systems. And our findings were so alarming that it led us to create this Coalition for Safe Drinking Water. The coalition's goal is to actually pass a legislative solution to the drinking water contamination problem, but I'll get to that later on. So for our testing program, we tested in several towns across the state of Massachusetts. In 2020, we started with just 21 tests clumped up around north central Massachusetts because that's the primary service area of our funder. But in 2021 and 2022, we expanded out to cover a broader swath of the state. As you can see, we went all the way from Coleraine in the Northwest to Wellfleet out in the Cape. Most towns got 40 tests per town, except for Sherborne received 41. And the towns that we tested in 2020, several of them only got a single test. Now, what did we test for? We tested for a pretty broad spectrum of contaminants. The most common ones that you'll find in Massachusetts. Those include arsenic, E. coli, nitrate, radon, total coliform bacteria, uranium, and manganese. So you'll notice that we do have both E. coli and total coliform bacteria as two separate items. That's because we originally do a total coliform bacteria test on every water sample when it comes in. And if you test positive for the broad spectrum total coliform bacteria, we then do a follow-up test for the E. coli. We do that because, as many of you I'm sure are aware, E. coli is a particularly dangerous contaminant in your drinking water. It causes life-threatening gastrointestinal illness. And everyone who had E. coli in their water, which thankfully weren't many, but if you did, everyone who had E. coli in their water was notified within 24 hours of these problems. Now, what did we find when we did this test? We found that 32% of private wells in the state of Massachusetts had levels of contamination that would have exceeded health standards for a public water system. And this suggests pretty substantial health risks. A lot of this is total coliform bacteria. As you can see from the bar graph, that's the majority of the contamination that we discovered. That is the result not of a poorly placed well. Typically, it's usually a poorly maintained well. It's one where the wellhead is not secure, not airtight, and surface water is making its way into the well. The total coliform bacteria hits are also very common in hand-dug pit wells, which Massachusetts has plenty, we discovered over the course of our study. So, like I said before, 32% of private wells in the state of Massachusetts had water in it that would have been unacceptable in a public drinking water system. We can compare that to Mass DEP's estimates for public water systems, where they find that only 4.5% of community water systems had levels of contaminants that exceed state health guidelines. So there's a very broad disparity in the equity in the quality of drinking water between rural and urban or suburban water consumers. So after discovering that there was such a big gulf between rural people on private wells and suburban and rural individuals using public drinking water, we decided to start the Coalition for Safe Drinking Water. The Coalition for Safe Drinking Water is a public-facing coalition of local government organizations like boards of health, private for-profit businesses that work in the water space, nonprofits, NGOs, and additionally, individual homeowners who live on private wells. The coalition is led by RCAP Solutions and the Health Foundation of Central Massachusetts, and we have two goals. The first is to enact sensible health-based regulations for private wells, such as requiring testing and setting limits for what contaminants should be tested for and what should be considered an unsafe level of contamination in a private residential well. And the second is to offer financial resources for homeowners who discover contaminants in their well water. Right now, we estimate that right around 500,000 residents in Massachusetts rely on a private well, but unlike individuals on public water systems, there is no statewide regulation in place to ensure that the water that the people on private wells are drinking is safe to drink, cook with, wash your dishes, brush your teeth, etc. So to address both of our goals, number one and number two in one fell swoop, we have introduced into both chambers of the Massachusetts legislature our bill, which we call an Act Promoting Drinking Water Quality for All. It was introduced in the Senate by Senator Jamie Eldridge and in the House by Reps. Danilo Senna and Smitty Pignatelli. Those are our bill numbers there. You can use to look up the legislation if you were so inclined. Now, our bill is pretty straightforward. It empowers DEP to set a minimum health standard for water quality and testing in private residential wells in much the same way they can for septic systems under the existing Title V system. This would bring us in line with other states such as Oregon, New Jersey, and Rhode Island that have taken similar steps to empower their state health regulators to regulate private residential wells. As of right now, Oregon, New Jersey, and Rhode Island are the only states in the union that have such laws on the books. Our bill would also expand the existing Mass Housing Septic Repair Loan Program, the SRLP, to include wells in addition to septic systems. So this would allow people to take out low or even zero interest loans from the Massachusetts state government in order to finance some well remediation or simple installation of a filtration system in their home. Now, what this bill will not do is an undue burden on homeowners. There's going to be extensive efforts taken to proactively educate homeowners on what their responsibilities would be under this bill, should it pass. We would be addressing the lab testing capacity in the state to make sure that there are not long waits to test wells, and we would develop strategies to mitigate paperwork for both state agencies and for local boards of health, such as the Templeton Board of Health, that, should this bill pass, would be required to play a role in the regulation of private wells. So this bill also does not specify what exact regulations will be. We are allowing the experts at DEP to set the standards themselves for what will be tested for and what thresholds will be considered unsafe, and then what actions must be taken from there will be left up to DEP. Like I said, we will not contain any details on contaminants or testing requirements. However, DEP has already published guidelines that they request that town boards of health adopt to regulate private wells. So we can imagine that DEP, once this law passes, if it were to pass, their regulations would be modeled on these already published guidelines. So it won't be a complete surprise what they come out with. Now, what I am hoping to get out of this conversation, I would love to see the Templeton Board of Health join our coalition to help show support across the state for passing this law to set these regulations. And we would also love to see everyday residents of the people of Templeton to join the coalition as well. We're open to both organizations and individuals. Even if you don't live on a private well, we'd love to have you on the team. You can, of course, spread the word on social media. You can direct people to what'sinyourwellwater.org. To learn more about what we do. And finally, I wanted to share that our organization, RCAP Solutions, through our Southeast affiliate RCAP, we have a home repair loan program that is able to provide loans of up to $15,000 at 1% interest for well repairs and remediation and septic repairs and remediation. Right now, the income eligibility is set at $120,400. So anybody in the state who makes under that threshold, who needs help drilling a new well or just installing a remediation system, say a filtration system, this would be a perfectly fine option for you to find some financing to get that done. So I know I kind of flew through that presentation a little fast. I'm imagining that there's some questions in the crowd from the board, or perhaps people calling in. Does anyone have any questions?
Did any testing happen in Templeton? I don't have, or do you have to be a part of the coalition for that to have happened?
So we did not test in Templeton. Our funder, the Health Foundation of Central Massachusetts, chose the towns that we tested in to try to get as much of a broad swath based on a diversity of geography. We wanted to make sure we were in a lot of different types of bedrock to have a good read on what the water quality would be like in a more fair way. Okay. As of right now, we don't have any plans to do any more free well testing in the state, unfortunately.
Lori, I have a question for you. How many private wells do we have in Templeton? Do you know?
Oh, we have as many private wells,
We do.
septic systems, pretty much.
Okay.
Maybe a little less percentage wise. I don't have an exact number for you.
Okay. Can we sign on to a coalition to be with them? Or is that something we have to get approval from?
Well, I think we can, as a Board of Health, you can make.
Okay, I didn't know if it was something we had to check with legal or not. It's never come up before.
Right. And we do currently do the community septic loan program through the state. So that'd be a natural segue for us to have the wells be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it works beautifully for septic systems. So I can't imagine that it wouldn't work
for
just as
wells.
well.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we are imagining that it would be largely the same system for wells. And again, they've published their guidelines in excruciating detail already. I'd be happy to give you guys a link to their already published guidelines to give you an idea of what you would expect in terms of the final regulations.
Oh, you mean the private well guidelines?
Yes, DEP.
No, we're very familiar with those.
Okay, sure. I'm sure. Yeah, I bet you guys are. Yeah.
We have a lot of wells.
In regards to a time frame, if this passes, how long do you think it would be to institute what was voted in?
Oh my, that question is a little bit above my pay grade, unfortunately. I would have to talk to my my more well-connected people on Beacon Hill to get an idea on something like that, but I'd be happy to get back to you.
Well, that's okay. I just was curious as if there was a timeline that you thought, and how is it going through so far as the bills that were?
Well, right now we're thinking that our bill will get a hearing towards the end of the summer, maybe the beginning of fall, so August or September, and then
Okay.
probably voted on a few months after that in the full session.
That's good. I've worked on so many that they never get through, so.
Oh, I
If
know,
you-
we
that's really
got sent to
something-
committee, or not sent to committee,
Yeah.
sent to study last year, so
Okay, good. All right.
fingers crossed this time around.
Second time's a charm, so I know Smitty Pignatelli works hard on these things too, so,
Oh, yeah, he's been an amazing champion of this this cause.
okay.
So what do you need for us, or what do we need to do to be part of the coalition?
On my end, the easiest thing for us is to fill out our coalition interest form and simply just have a point of contact designated as who we can reach out to if we ever needed to get back in touch with you guys. Or keep you abreast of the situation and what we're doing. The other thing that we really would love to do for all of our boards of health is we love being able to post your town logo or your town seal, or if the Board of Health has its own seal on our website. So having like a JPEG of that would also be great for us. And I can send you a link to our coalition interest form where you can give us that point of contact.
And we can put something on our website as well, to
Yes.
keep the link up to the.
Absolutely.
And I'd be happy to give you guys our logo if you wanted to put that on your website.
That would be great.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you for all that you're doing, Madison, and
Of course.
love safe water.
Don't we all?
Yes. So,
Awesome, awesome. Well,
Okay.
thank you guys for your public service. I know that being working for the Board of Health can sometimes be an unsung job. But great. Is there any other questions or anything I can answer for you guys right now?
No.
I'm like, Earl's coming up with something, then he changed his mind. So I think we're good. Thank you
right,
so much for
fantastic.
taking the time to meet with us tonight.
Of course, of course. Well, I'll follow up via email with you guys and make sure you have our coalition interest form link and a copy of our logo. And again, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you. Take care.
You as well. Bye.
Bye. All right, moving right along. Communicable disease update, Lori. How are we doing on that?
So, as you know, because we talked about it before, May 11th is the drop date for Massachusetts. Our last report for COVID is dated May 4th, 2023, and that covers April 16th through the April 29th. We had no new reported cases during that time. It's still saying we're 1.85% positive, and that's probably because in the weeks before that, we may have had a couple of cases.
Okay.
And just for information purposes, since the onset, our total reported cases is 2,342. I mean, it's next to nothing now.
I
And
know last week, yeah, they said Mass General for the first time since 2020 March, they had 0 cases in the hospital.
Yeah,
And
that,
it was like 15 in Boston completely throughout the hospital. So
yeah, that's great.
it's great. It is great. And if people are getting COVID, which I know people still are, they're not being hospitalized. So the variants are
Right.
so low.
We also had one case of sugar toxin, SHIGA, which comes from E. coli, which comes
Oh.
from, it could be a form of food poisoning, or everybody's okay, but it happened. We also had somebody tested positive for HGA, which is anaplasmosis, which you get from a tick bite.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they've been, I've gone on a couple walks and they've been really bad.
the ticks are really bad. So for anybody watching, just prepare when you're out in the woods, when you're in your backyard even.
Yeah.
they're in full swing. But other than that, I don't have anything really to report on the communicable diseases. Montechusett Public Health Network, their nurses, we still contract with them. They do all our follow-up and case tracing. So
Great. That's upbeat.
it is.
It's right. Did anybody else get the? Oh my gosh, what do they even call it? The testing today through public health? Did you get that?
Yes,
Okay.
you and I would have gotten
It's
it.
just us,
I
right?
already
'Cause I thought
did.
we changed that.
Yes.
Okay.
I went on to Web EOC for the Region 2 emergency management drill. I did our part of it and updated our profile. All you had to do by,
Let's just open the email.
correct.
If I can't answer the phone, which they always, it always says, press 1 to confirm, and I'm laughing going, "Yeah, this is a message. It's
Yeah.
not gonna work."
I know. You have to
So-
actually open the email.
Yeah, so I opened the email. It was fine.
Perfect. So we're good.
Because for some reason, I can't get into that. I know I had signed in and have a password and everything, but I've got into it once.
Okay.
And whatever my password is, and I never have time to call because you have to call to change it, I believe.
As long as you're good with opening,
Opening the email is fine with
Yep.
me. Okay. All right. Any other reports, anything from Earl or Laura?
Nope.
Okay,
So nothing, just nothing on that.
I have nothing.
Okay.
and they actually started the demolition today did they start?
Yes.
Oh, on that house?
So, on 10 Pleasant Street, the demolition was started, and when they started to remove the vinyl siding, there were asbestos tiles underneath. So they will be taking care of that, and then demolition will continue.
Okay, so they'll remediate as
So just a
Fine.
little
glitch.
that has to be cleared up, and we'll keep going.
Awesome.
So
Yeah, that's an interesting process.
it is an interesting.
Had that done at
process.
our house and it was very interesting. Now I feel it's good.
It's-
It's gone.
Right.
It's gone, yay. So, okay. And then our next meeting, Earl, is May 22nd, okay? with
Why are you
you?
telling me?
I'm just
Tell me now.
asking. I will remind you. Not May.
Yeah, I had,
Oh, okay, yeah, because I'm not here in May. Not here in May. I'm gone.
so that's up
Was
for
that-
discussion on how you
this
want to
is-
handle it.
Yeah, did we want to skip over? Because this is kind of like last month's.
It is,
Okay.
right, because I was going to be gone.
You
Okay.
were gone.
I
weren't
was
you?
gone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I would say no more in May, go straight to June.
We can go straight to June. That's totally up to you. If something comes up, I can
You can
set
let
up a
us
meeting
know.
and let you know that we need to meet.
Okay.
So
Do we anticipate anything coming up?
not at the moment.
Okay. I will be gone from the 20th to the 27th, so.
Okay.
All right, so then June would be June 5th,
We're usually
second one, June 12th,
the third
third one.
or fourth.
And you open on Juneteenth on the
Yeah.
19th,
We are not, so it would be the
Okay.
fourth Monday of June.
so the 26th. Okay. Is that,
I will double check that
okay.
and get an email out to you guys tomorrow.
Okay, I will put it in as possible. That would work for me.
Okay.
Does that work for you, Earl?
Sure.
I have patients all day who say, I don't know what I'm gonna be doing in 6 months. And I look at them and goes, I know what I'm gonna be doing. I'm gonna be here
Right here.
working. So, all right. So we have a motion to adjourn.
Like a motion to adjourn the meeting at
I'll second it.
7:38.
All right, 7:38.